All right, today we're going to be in section 2.6, which is titled Ratios, Rates, and Conversions. This section talks about a bunch of stuff. Ratios, rates, and conversions mainly. So we've got some new vocabulary today. Some of it you may be familiar with, some of it may be new. They're all pretty important. The first one is a ratio. A ratio is kind of just a fancy word for a fraction. A ratio compares two numbers by division. Now there's going to be a couple ways that we can look at a ratio. Like I said, you can look at it just as a fraction. So like 3 over 4, that's a ratio. You're comparing 3 to 4. You could also compare it, it could look like this using a colon. You would say 6 to 1. So you're comparing 6 and 1. You could actually write out the word 2 and you could say 19 to 2. Or if you want like a real life example, I could compare the number of boys in a class to the number of girls in a class. And you could actually write the number of boys to girls in a class using any of these. Okay? Now a rate is going to be a little more specific. A rate is a ratio, but it compares quantities of different units. So for example, if I say that, okay, well, I can travel 120 miles per 3 hours. So 120 miles to 3 hours. Notice they have different units, miles, and I've got hours. And then the first thing we're going to actually talk about today is a unit rate. A unit rate is a rate, so has different, a ratio that has different units, but the denominator is going to be 1. So, for example, I could say, well, I can travel 65 miles per 1 hour. Now, I know it's not written as a fraction, but if I wanted to write this as a fraction, it'd be 65 miles over 1 hour. What I want you to notice, that denominator is 1. So unit rate has a denominator of 1. So that's going to be the first thing that we talk about, is using unit rates to compare some things. So the first question is just going to say, which is the better deal? So here's the situation we have. Okay, we're buying shirts. Now, one place I could pay $25 for 2 shirts. Another place I could pay $45 for 4 shirts. And even another place I could maybe pay $30 for 3 shirts. I want to know which of these is the better deal. Which one do I get the best price per shirt? So notice it's kind of hard to compare these because in one place I have to buy 2 shirts, one place I have to buy 4 shirts, the other place I have to buy 3 shirts. So it's hard to compare these since I'm buying different quantities. So what I want to know is I want to know how much at each of these places is it going to cost to buy only 1 shirt. This is really, really easy to do. I know that if it's going to cost me $25 for 2 shirts, in order to find out how much it's going to cost for 1 shirt, you just take 25 and divide it by 2, which is going to give you $12.50 per shirt. So that first place, I'd pay $12.50 for 1 shirt. The second place, if it's going to cost me $45 for 4 shirts, in order to find how much it's going to cost for 1 shirt, I need to take 45 and divide it by 4. And if you punch that in your calculator, we should get $11.25. Okay? And then finally, the third place, I could pay $30 for 3 shirts. So if I were only to buy 1 shirt, or the cost for 1 shirt, it would be $10. So clearly, this last one here, that $10 per shirt, that's going to be the best deal. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, and if you have had physics, this may have been something that you've already done. We're going to be converting units, and this is very, very easy. But the big thing that we need to know first is we need to know, we need a conversion factor. Okay, so our conversion factors is a ratio of equivalent measures. So for example, a conversion factor could say, I have 1 foot to 12 inches. That's a ratio of equivalent measures, right? It's a fraction. 1 foot equals 12 inches. That would be considered a conversion factor. So here's what these are going to look like. I want to convert the given amount to the given unit. So for the first one, I want to convert 63 yards to feet. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take that 63 yards, the unit you're trying to convert, and you are going to multiply by your conversion factor. Now, your conversion factor is going to be a fraction. It's going to be a conversion, or it's going to be a fraction that's a rate, right? So I need two different units. Well, and I know that I want to go from yards to feet. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to cancel out the units. So this yards, I want to cancel this out. So think about what happens when we cross reduce. When I cross reduce, I can divide out a number in a numerator with a number in a denominator. It works the same way with the units. If I want to cancel out this yards, I would need a yards down here in the denominator. And these are going to cancel out just like we cross-reduce numbers. Okay, well, and what's going to go in your numerator is your feet. I want to go from yards to feet. So once you figure out what your units are, now you just fill in the numbers. Well, what do I know about feet and yards? Okay, well, we know that in 1 yard, there are 3 feet. And then, lastly, to find your number, you're either going to multiply or divide. So this tells me to take 63 times 3 divided by 1, which should give me 189 feet. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, number 2. This time, let's do 2.5 pounds, and I want to convert to ounces. Ounces. Okay, so we're going to write that first unit, 2.5 pounds. Okay, we're going to multiply by a conversion factor. Now remember, with this conversion factor, I'm looking to cancel out the pounds. So if I want to cancel out the pounds, we're going to have to put the pounds in the denominator, right? Because they're going to cancel out because one's in the numerator, one's in the denominator. So if I want to go from pounds to ounces, that means we're going to put ounces in the numerator. And then we need to know the relationship between ounces and pounds. If you're not sure what this is, there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. So now to figure out your number, this time we're going to take 2.5 times 16, and it should leave me with 40 ounces. Okay, let's try this next one, number 3. Let's try 9 yards to meters. Okay, so write down your 9 yards. Okay, and I want you to think about your conversion factor. Think about where that yards is going to have to go, right? Because I want to cancel it out. Okay, hopefully we remember it's going to have to go in the denominator. That way it will cancel out with my other yards. Okay, and I want to go from yards to meters. Now, unfortunately, there's not a nice, easy conversion factor from meters to yards, so I had to consult good old Google, and Google told me that there are 0.914 meters in 1 yard. So you may have to do a little bit of investigation to figure out how many, the different units, if it's not an easy conversion. So I'm going to take 9 times 0.914, and I should get 8.2 meters. Okay, let's do one more of these. Alright, so this one we are going to do number 4, 89 centimeters, and we're going to convert to inches. So like the last one, write down your 89 centimeters. Okay, think about what your units are going to look like in your conversion factor. The centimeters has to go in the denominator. That way they can cancel out. In the numerator, we want to go from centimeters to inches. Once again, there's not really a nice, easy conversion between inches and centimeters. So I had to look at Google, and Google told me that in 1 inch, there are 2.54 centimeters. So on this one, what I want you to notice is that in my numerator, I'm taking 89 times 1, and then I have to divide by 2.54. So in the end, we're taking 89 divided by 2.54. That's going to come out to around 35 inches. We're going to have to round that one. Okay, we're going to do a similar thing in this next one. So number 5, it says copy and complete each statement. So first one, we want to do 5 feet 3 inches equals blank inches. So in other words, I want to know in 5 feet 3 inches, how many total inches is that? So the first thing we need to do is we need to take this 5 feet and I need to convert it to inches. So just like we did in the last one, take your 5 feet. We're going to multiply by our conversion factor. My conversion factor is going to have feet in the denominator, inches in the numerator, and then to fill in your number, we know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So whenever I multiply these out, 5 times 12 gives me 60 inches. So in this 5 feet alone, there's 60 inches. But don't forget, we still have that 3 inches. So the 60 inches plus 3 inches is going to leave me with 63 inches. Okay, let's try this next one because it's a little bit different. Okay, number 6. Okay, number 6 says 75 cents per hour equals how many dollars per day? Let me scoot that over. 75 cents per hour equals how many dollars per day? So what I want you to notice about this one is I have to take cents and I have to change it into dollars, and then I'm going to have to change hours into days. So first thing, let's write this 75 cents to hours. Okay, let's write it as a fraction. So 75 cents in 1 hour. Okay, just rewrote it as a fraction. Now what I have to do is I'm going to have to kind of do this in 2 steps. The first thing is I need to change cents into dollars. So let's get rid of the cents. Okay, now I know that the cents is going to have to go in the denominator, and I'm changing this to dollars, so that's going to go in the numerator. Notice the cents cancel out, and then fill in your conversion factor. Okay, if you're talking about dollars and cents, hopefully we know that in $1 there are 100 cents. Okay, so that takes care of the cents. Now I need to do the same thing, but I need to change hours to days. Now be careful here, because in this one, since the hours is in the denominator, when I multiply by that next conversion factor, that hours is going to have to go in the numerator. Because notice, this hour and this hour, one has to be in the numerator, one has to be in the denominator if they're going to cancel out. And I am going from hours to days. Okay, what I want you to notice is I've crossed out all of my units except for dollars and days, which is what I wanted. Okay, so lastly, before we multiply this out, we know that in 1 day there are 24 hours. So for this one, when we multiply across, I have 75 times 1 times 24, and then we're going to divide by 100. So 75 times 24, I believe, gives you 1,800. And when you divide by 100, you're going to end up with $18 a day. So not a very good paycheck there. 75 cents an hour is about $18 a day. Okay, last type of example is going to be really similar to that last one we did. So this one says a student ran the 50-yard dash in 5.8 seconds. How fast did he run in miles per hour? So first thing, let's take that 50-yard dash in 5.8 seconds. Let's write it as a rate. So I've got 50 yards to 5.8 seconds. Now what I want you to notice is I'm trying to go to miles per hour. So I've got to go from yards to miles, seconds to hours. Okay? So let's do seconds to hours first. Now we could do this in 2 steps, or you could do it in 1 step. We'll do it in 2 steps for this one. So if I want to cancel out the seconds, I know the seconds going to have to go in the numerator, and I want to go from seconds to hours. Now, if you're kind of thinking to yourself, I don't really know off the top of my head how many seconds are an hour. I do know how many seconds are in a minute, however. So we could say, okay, well, I know that there's 60 seconds in 1 minute. Okay, so look, see, my seconds are gone. But it's still not exactly what I wanted, because I need this as in hours. So let's multiply by another conversion factor, and let's go from minutes to hours. So this time I'm trying to cancel out the minutes. So I need to put my minutes in the numerator and my hours in the denominator. So now my minutes are gone, and I have the unit I want, my hours. That's what I was looking for. Okay, and so then if we fill this in, I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. If you know that conversion straight from seconds to hours, you could write that in 1 instead of 2. Okay, and then we need to worry about going from yards to miles. Okay, now that may not be something that you know off the top of your head, but we can at least fill in our units. If I'm trying to cancel out yards, this yards is in the numerator. So in order to cancel it out, I'm going to have to put the yards in the denominator, because notice that yards will cancel out with this yards. And I'm going from yards to miles. And once again, if you're not sure what it is, go ahead and consult good old Google, and I'll tell you that in 1 mile there are 1,760 yards. So you can always kind of double check that my only units that I have left with are miles per hour. I've crossed out all of the rest of them, which is what I wanted. So then we just need to figure out the number part. So I would take 50 times 60 times 60, whatever that is. And 50 times 60 times 60 should give me 180,000. And we're going to divide that by 5.8 times 1,760, which gives me 10,208. And then finally, if I divide those two numbers out, we're going to get around 17.6 miles per hour.